Welcome to episode 124 of the Muck Podcast, a member of the Odd Pods Media Network. Listen in as we discuss the dark and sometimes weird true stories in American politics. I'm Tina Jaramillo.
And I'm Hillary Doherty.
We're on Zoom.
It's so weird to look at myself. Hi.
I know. We're like back in, it's like party. Well, I have my Ginsburg shirt on, but I have like little cute like pajama shorts on underneath.
Me too. I'm wearing a very nice red, like what's it called?
Business on top, party on the bottom.
And sweatpants on the bottom. Because why? Why are we sitting here? We have not been put on house arrest because our behavior and we didn't go arrest people last week, as angry as we were.
I know.
My children got COVID, which is so fucking insane. I can't tell you. I thought for sure like we were gonna make it and not, be one of those people who get COVID, right? But it's not. It's like everybody at some point is going to have it.
Yeah, our EP always says that. He's like, everyone is gonna have it. It's
a matter of time. Yeah. So they tested positive on Mother's Day in the afternoon, which is fun. And then I have not tested positive, which is like a fucking miracle. Yeah. Especially because we have our gala this Saturday coming up for Dolphins, for Dolphin Dems, which we worked really hard on. We were just saying, like, you said, we got to do Zoom because I just got to make it to the gala. I'm like, me too. Like, I just want to get to the gala. And although the following week I go see Phoebe Bridgers, and so like the 25th. So I can.
I remember.
Like, she started her tour last night in Las Vegas, and I was looking at pictures, and I was thinking to myself, and I see them all wearing masks backstage. I'm like, please God, just Phoebe, get her to Florida. Just get her to fucking Florida. I do not want this show canceled. Like, I need to see her. So here we are. But I appreciate you doing this. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I always feel like the audio really sucks this way, but what are we gonna do? I mean,
listeners, just deal with one episode. We'll be back to normal next week.
It's only 1 week.
So
what's going on? You got anything on your list? I have a couple of things.
One, I do. I have a couple of things. So one thing is our ratings and reviews and things like that. So I would love to have you guys go on and rate the podcast, especially because there's a person in my life who deliberately put a 1-star review on Apple Podcasts.
What?
Yeah, I mean, I won't go into details who. I'll tell you off the air.
Okay.
But it's just disappointing that people want to be petty and people think that, like, I won't know, but I do. And so if you could just help us out, because those reviews are important. And, if it was a legitimate 1-star review from someone who actually listened to the podcast and didn't just want to be mean to me, that would be a different thing. So if we could counter that one review with your reviews, if you haven't been able to do that, that would be awesome.
Yes, and also I wanted to talk about Patreon, because last week when we were done recording that abortion episode, we recorded, so it depends on how many weeks are in the month, but usually twice a month you will get a recording from us on Patreon if you are one of our subscribers on there, and you give us money every week, like beautiful people that you are. And we
support the cause.
And somehow the questions always turn, like, it's always like, oh, here's a random question, but they somehow turn into like other things are talked about, and it's a way to like get to know us better. And it's really not that much money a month. I think $5 to $10 a month gets you the recordings, at least one or two of the recordings. So yes, please check out the Patreon as well, right?
I agree. I feel like we're a little revealing, sometimes more revealing than we can maybe be on the regular pod. And sometimes they're silly, sometimes they're very serious. And we think you would like them.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I think people would like them. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. Okay, so I have a couple of things. First, I talked to you about this off the air, but I kind of wanted to see what people thought about it, is having our listeners donate to an abortion fund somewhere either locally, or we could give you recommendations if you're in Florida, especially in Broward. There's one, the Broward Women's Emergency Fund. It's called BWEF. They are an incredible organization. They not only help women here, they help women come into the state, because believe it or not, Florida was a bit of a sanctuary state for abortion up until this recent, we'll see what happens after this recent bill that got signed. But so anyway, we had an idea to, like, you give a donation to one of these local abortion organizations, and that helps women, and send us your like receipt that you did it, and that we would have you sit in on a recording with us. So if it's you're far away, you're not in Broward, then it could be on a Zoom, or if you're in Broward, you can come to my house.
Yes.
Tina's like, no weirdos. And I'm like, yeah, I don't, hashtag no weirdos. I'm like, how do we do that?
I know.
So we'll figure it out. Maybe it'll be somebody we know. I don't know. Yeah. But you get to sit in on a recording with us and be a part of the podcast. But we really want to make sure people are helping women and donating to these organizations, because they are definitely.
And I would love to even do, I don't know if we can even like show like this many people donated, this much money was like, you know, donated to the cause. It's just so important right now that we do this. I mean, I wanted to talk about, thank God it got struck down, but that Louisiana bill that was going to criminalize abortion and make it murder. And we talked about it last week. These bills are not going to go away. The one I talked about last week was Texas. This is Louisiana. We're going to keep seeing it pop up until women are criminalized.
It's surprising that one in Louisiana got struck down, because that governor is a Democrat, but he's a, you know, old school Dem. He actually signed a pretty bad abortion bill last session in Louisiana. That was like a Texas bill almost, you know what I mean?
I'm sick of these pro-life Democrats. I mean, I'm
girl.
really, and I know that you had talked about like, I'm leaving the party. I'm definitely like the progressive wing of the party. And I feel like the progressive wing of the party needs to be the party. Like it's enough. It's enough.
And I've actually seen in the last week, I've seen more and more people actually saying, why the fuck has this never been codified? Like we talked about on the podcast last week. And I saw a great clip, which I shared. I think you saw it on my Facebook, of Kyle Kalinske. A friend of mine shared that with me, and it's everything we talked about on the podcast, but he actually laid out how Carter, like right after this, Carter had a supermajority his first 2 years. Obama had a supermajority for 2 years. You know, Biden,
the opportunity there,
Clinton, you know,
but everyone's afraid of their own seats, right? It's that ego is getting in the way, and they're worried about their own seats, or maybe it does go to a Republican one year. Maybe they personally lose their seat and it goes to another Dem. Oh well, your work is to work for the constituents,
and also
not to keep you in a seat for your entire life. That's not what this is about, and that's why that mansion drives me crazy, because I feel like West Virginia can do better. I feel like they can do better than this guy.
And Nancy Pelosi is so funny, because in that clip that I shared, she was on Face the Nation, and I watched that clip over and over and over again. And first of all, and I can't stress this enough, the older generation that has held on to power in this party for far too long, and I'm talking about a Biden. I'm talking about a Biden. I'm talking about Feinstein. I'm talking about Pelosi. They have refused to hand over power or pass the baton to the next generation of people. And what we have seen is their old way of doing politics, that where Democrats have failed for the last 30 to 40 years, they're continuing to think that that's the way. That's why she supports pro-life Democrats, because that's the way they've always done it. And she says in that clip, which I'll have to share on our face, on our everywhere that we have social media, but she says in the clip, you know, she wants to talk to Republicans and try to get them to be pro-choice, instead of just being like, we need to fight against them. She says the Republican Party has changed. They've changed their way of thinking. And I thought to myself, that's right, they did. And then they started winning. Right? Then they started winning. We're still doing it the old way. And that's why we lose, because you think you're going to be friends with people and you're fucking not. So their lack of like moving forward with the party and not accepting bullshit candidates and bullshit people who are like, well, I'm a Democrat, but I'm pro-life. Actually, you're not, because it's one of the fucking pillars of this party is to protect women's rights on every fucking level, local, state, federal level, the Democratic Party is protecting women's rights. So if you aren't, that's not part of your fucking thing. You can't say you're a Democrat. And you certainly, as a leader in this party, cannot fucking support a candidate who fucking says that. Because that is a pillar. And it, by the way, it's supposed to be kind of fucking important. It's actually supposed to be something that's a fucking, not an exception to the rule. Like, it is the fucking rule that you support women's rights, period. We don't take an exception to that. We're not talking about like climate change or gun control, which, you know, we could talk about regulations and this and that. This is not a fucking up for debate for me. And so, you know, I was thinking about when you said I'm changing my party affiliation. Yeah. I was thinking about this yesterday and I started to cry on my way to work thinking about this. I have been a Democrat for as long as I can fucking remember. I remember my grandfather, who's the only grandparent I ever fucking knew. My mom's father lived down the block from us. He'd come over. We'd see him all the time. But on Sundays, he'd sit with my mother and they'd read the paper and I would sit next to them. And I just wanted to be a part of it. Like, they talked about politics. They talked about being Democrats and what that meant to them. And it was something that I wanted to be a part of. Being a Democrat was like part of who I have been. It's been ingrained in me my entire fucking life. I'll never, like, even like in my bio for the podcast, like first voted for Dukakis in 4th grade. Like, it is a fucking thing for me. So and I remember how like my grandmother worked on the Kennedy campaign in Connecticut. Like, this is a part of who my family is. So for me to say, I'm leaving the party, I want that to be very clear that this is huge for me. For me to say I'm going to change my party affiliation, I'm not just some random fucking voter. Like, this is a lifelong fucking commitment. For 26 years, I have been voting for Democrats and I am tired. Like, how long are we supposed to just put up with this fucking horse shit? And I put posts up about it all the time. Like, hey, we all need to look at the party. And I get maybe 1 or 2 likes. Because people don't really want to look at themselves and say, well, why are we losing? And they love to point at the boogeyman of the Republican Party. And actually, that's not the case. Democrats have failed you because they don't know how to fight in politics at all. They don't know how to do this. So why are we still rewarding them with votes and with money?
Elections? Like, it's bullshit. True. It's true. And to go back to your point, if you want to be, you know, in your own personal life, pro-life, and you don't want to have an abortion, then don't have an abortion. And I really don't like that they have co-opted this pro-life, because being pro-choice, you know, that doesn't somehow mean that you're for, you know, they paint us as murderers and monsters, and it's ridiculous. Yeah. Because we're actually the ones that are pro-life, because we're about thinking about the health of the mother, thinking about the mental well-being of women. We're for safeguarding programs that help women who do choose to have a baby. Yeah. They're not for any of that. No, they're not for any of that. And then I read a post the other day about, you want to be so pro-life, but at the start of the pandemic, someone wrote a post and I was like, oh shit, that's right. At the start of the pandemic, to keep the economy going, old people could die, right? So we're not pro-life for them. Yeah. And they're pro-death penalty and they're pro-guns, and they don't give a shit about little babies at Sandy Hook who got killed. But, you know, hey, a fetus. Yeah. Well, the new thing this week is, give me a break. The new thing this week, which is fucking ironic beyond, it's irony beyond irony, is that there's a shortage of baby formula in this country. Oh my God. A shortage of baby formula, Tina. It's terrible. It's fucking awful. And it's like, do you all not see like the writing on the fucking wall? Like, this is not a thing. And guess what the worst part is? Fox News, one of their talking points, and the Republican electeds have picked up on it and have repeated it, is that the babies at the border in the detention centers are using up all the formula. So immigrant babies, we shouldn't be giving the formula. We should be giving that formula to Americans. Yeah, let the immigrant babies they can die. Yeah. Those kids that are not white, they can fucking die at the border. It's so fuck them. Gross. So, and they're pro-life, right? And not to mention, pro-baby. The reason why all of this is happening is because it's tied to the stock market and money, right? Because everything in our country is tied to the New York Stock Exchange. Yeah. And it's ridiculous. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Like, our pension, like in the state of Florida, our pension is tied to stocks. You know, like we are in this capitalistic regime needs to end. I know.
So they did
Because it's
they tried to
causing all
pass
this
the-
bullshit everywhere and people don't see it. And
No.
then they want to talk about immigrants at the border.
Yeah, well, it's
Which like the guy who we talked about last week, there's a poor girl who's been raped. She's got to have that baby, but fuck her, she can't have formula. Come on.
Yes. Yeah. P.S. I was wondering about that woman. Do you think that she was raped by somebody we probably don't know, but I wondered if she was assaulted by somebody who worked in the facility. Like that's a thing that happens too. You know what I mean? We're not even protecting the women in those facilities. Like who knows? The thing that I wanted to talk about too, or just bring up was, oh my God, now I completely forgot. God damn it, Tina. I completely forgot. Oh, Jesus, it's in my notes. The Senate failed to pass. They could have blocked Roe v. Wade or like protected women. And they didn't pass the Women Protection Act.
Yeah.
So Manchin didn't vote for it.
And,
all those senators like the women.
They're on the record. I mean, so what?
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean?
That's what
but they wouldn't have been able, even with or without Manchin, because of the stupid filibuster.
Dems, that's what the Dem spins was. I was on Twitter and I saw every single Democratic US senator being like, I'm going to vote for the Women's Protection Act today. Pay attention to who doesn't vote for it. That's what you saw over and over again. I'm like, what is that? Is that like, we know who's going to vote no. We know who's going to vote no. But here's the thing. It's a Hail Mary pass, 40 years in the making. You've had 40 fucking years to codify this and to protect women. You're trying at the last minute. It's so pathetic and sad and fucked up. And think about the fucking, the image of this, Tina. Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned with a Democrat in the White House and a full Democratic Congress. Think about the way that looks and how fucking insane that is. And I keep reading that Biden can sign a fucking executive order, an executive order protecting women and fucking ending this. He has not even said he will do that. What?
I know. We have to wait and see, right?
That Trump was writing executive orders every time he fucking turned
around. My God. Every time you turn around. It's so ridiculous.
So
I can't even take it. And then the other thing that upset me, and just shifting gears a little bit to the wonderful state of Florida, was those Nazi flags flying outside of Disney World. And instead of having a governor that would condemn that, all he had to say was the Democrats are trying to smear me. The Democrats, like he twists he does not care about people in this state. He doesn't care. He aligns himself with the Proud Boys and all of these disgusting people, but everyone wants to say how great he is.
Yeah.
It gets worse. It's like every day when we think it can't get any worse, it keeps getting worse.
They're flying those flags next to DeSantis flags. Like if you see those big trucks going down the street with all the flags, you'll see a DeSantis flag, a Trump flag, Nazi flags, Proud Boys flags. Like you will see all of those flags alongside those. Now, there was a time when electeds in this country would distance themselves from Nazis. Like this is fucking outrageous. It's outrageous.
Because that party is just the party of propaganda and it's like we have an America, we've said it before, but it's an American Taliban. That's what we have. That's who these people are. Yeah.
And they've never had that sort of footing. You know what I mean? But as soon as you give them a little bit of space, like Trump did, a little bit of validity, they fucking kick that door open and now they're all over the fucking
because they want power.
Yeah.
And then you have that jerk off, Elon Musk, who is, buying Twitter. And I know it's on hold now. Did you see Snoop Dogg was like, maybe I should buy?
Yes.
I was like, Snoop. My God, I will donate money to help Snoop Dogg buy Twitter. Like if everybody gave $1, we can buy Twitter. Oh my God.
I'm fucking here for it.
But when he said, like everyone said, he's going to give Trump that power back. He's going to give Trump. And what is he going to do? He said it.
What did we say? What was the number?
The Alex Jones, all of these people who are inciting violence. And until someone gets killed.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they'll spin it another way. It won't be their fault.
No, he's going to be in his rocket ship off to the moon. He doesn't give a shit. You know what I mean?
They're going to go live on Mars. But what was the thing? I think when Trump
they need to leave now. Like, please go.
Yeah, just get out.
The hell out.
Fucking like plastic face. What's wrong with his face?
I don't know, but he needs to get out. Nobody likes him.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
Listen,
He is like a
sorry about your
bruised,
dick. I'm very sorry about it.
bruised little man.
Yeah.
Ugh.
What was the thing after Trump finally got banned on Twitter? The misinformation percentage went down like 82%. It was some crazy thing because he would tweet something and then like hundreds of millions of people would retweet it. And it was all terrible misinformation. It went down like 82% from one person being banned on Twitter. 82%. Dude, that's incredible. Oh my God.
Yeah. But Elon Musk is aligned with that bullshit.
Yeah. Well.
All right. Well, are we ready?
The last thing I want to say is that I told you this, that my friend Josh might come down. I'm so fucking stoked.
That is gonna be amazing.
Yeah, and he listens to the podcast, so I know he's thinking June, and I'm like, let's go, bitch, let's go. I'm so excited. It. Yeah, so hopefully Josh will come in, and because I want him to be able to sit in with us and with the podcast.
Oh, that'd be
all right. I'm ready. You're first, yes?
All right, I am. All right, today I'm going to tell you the story of the unsolved murder of Ben Lewis.
Okay.
Do you know this?
I don't, but murder at 8 a.m. is always fun. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry. All right, Alderman Ben Lewis was a rising star in Chicago political circles, but when he's found dead in his office, it begins a decades-long mystery that remains unsolved today. So our story takes place in one of your favorite places, Chicago, Chi-town, right?
Windy City.
I want to just take a moment to say hi to our friend and our patron, Adam.
Yay!
We miss you.
Oh,
Adam. So as I noted, Lewis was this up and coming politician. He was the first Black man to be elected to the 24th Ward in Chicago in 1958. And according to Lewis's wiki page, there's a little bit more history that they kind of offer coming from various newspapers and the Chicago Tribune, that he was born in Georgia, but he moved to Chicago as like a very young child. And he lived on the west side of Chicago. And he pretty much grew up there. And after graduating high school and then junior college, he worked as a clerk for the U.S. Unemployment Service for about 3 years. He served in World War II. Then he moved back to Chicago into the 24th Ward after the war. He worked as a driver for the Chicago Transit Authority until 1955. And in the 1940s, the ward consisted of many Jewish families, but then it became a primarily Black community. However, the aldermen were still white and often Jewish, and they didn't want to give up those positions of power, right? They want to have that hold. And the ward and those like it, they became known as what's called plantation wards.
Oh my God.
A lot of Black communities, but the people at the top aren't representing and don't look like the people that live there.
Right.
And folks like Lewis fought to have representation.
Nice.
So he becomes a precinct captain in 1952. And that wiki page notes that, and I saw this several places, that he was known for the way that he dressed. And they said his brash fashion and quick-witted personality. So he always had like very sharp, very nice suits. And that was just a thing that a lot of articles noted. So I wanted to be sure to note that that was like part of his personality. And a New York Times article noted that he was given the nickname the Duke, and the Chicago Tribune noted he was also called Big Cat and the Duke of Dixieland.
Oh my God.
And eventually he runs and wins the alderman seat, and he takes office in 1958.
Nice.
And a New York Times article from the time noted that Lewis said of his ward, like talking about his ward, of all the wards, had the highest unemployment rate. And the article went so far to call it the squalid 24th Ward, suggesting like a level of poverty and neglect. And he was known, I guess, because of this, for his child welfare work, because a lot of gangs were cropping up and things like that. And so he prompted like other precinct captains in the area to do all that they could to help the youth community in the ward, like things like raising money for summer camps and raising money for athletic uniforms and for athletic programs to give these kids things to do so that they're not being pushed towards gang activity.
That's awesome.
And some issues that he faced really came back to the plantation politics. So while, he's the first Black man elected, he's still working a lot with other white folks who are still representing those Black districts. And even though he had promised, like, I want to bring more Black people into different positions throughout the city, it wasn't easy. It's not like he could just do it, like he had to kind of play this game. So that was, a challenge for him. And some people even believe that Lewis was deliberately tapped for that seat, for that alderman position, because he could work with the white Jewish leaders in charge. So the white Jewish leaders saw him as someone that they could work with. So they were like, okay, well, we can let this guy kind of take the seat.
Yeah.
And especially because some of the reports noted that he grew up as one of the few Blacks in a predominantly Jewish community. So he knew that community well. And some say that he could even speak Yiddish. Like he just kind of grew up. And he said that he faced like discrimination and certain things, but at the same time, he also kind of grew up with some of these people. So after serving as alderman and winning re-election, his next move was to run for a US Congress seat in 1963.
Wow.
So some other details, an ABC 7 article notes that while Lewis made $8,000 a year, which, believe it or not, is about $75,000 today, he may have been overspending. So I saw a couple of these articles. But I do want to say I'm taking this with a little bit of a grain of salt, because there's some sort of issue with his reputation, and that it could be that white newspapers and white police officers and people in the community who may have been involved in what happened try to kind of paint Lewis in a negative light. So I'm going to say like some of the things that were reported, but I really want to note that like there are some articles that are like, this may not have really been what they were promoting at the time. And when you have white people in charge, like they can kind of control the narrative.
Yeah.
So there was a historian and an author, Richard Lindbergh, who noted that while he had that decent salary for the time, he was living supposedly a high-end lifestyle. And it said that he was vacationing in Acapulco quite frequently, and he was living well beyond his means.
Oh boy.
Because he had like, supposedly like his suits were custom made, and he had nice cars and things that maybe they said like, he's the Duke, that maybe like it didn't really line up with what he was making. But still, Alderman Reginald Coates remembered Lewis as someone who worked really hard to support his family and was a loyal party member. And but then there was an officer at the time in Chicago, Shea O'Malley, that Irish officer. He thought he's one of these people that paints Lewis in a negative way. And he said to Mark Rika of the Chicago Daily News at the time that Lewis was a, quote, skirt chaser. And again, a lot of the articles note that there may have been some police involvement in what happened to Lewis. So these officers are saying negative things about Lewis. I'm kind of like, So, however, I did find a Chicago Tribune article from the time that noted that 6 women did come forward saying that they had had affairs with Lewis and that he gave them money and he was buying them clothes and all of that. So,
I mean, why is that a thing? Because of the time and like it's not appropriate.
It's like in the 50s and and back then, like which it's like men have done this from the dawn of time.
That's what I mean. Like, how is this newsworthy?
It's not. But back then, maybe
they're trying to paint his character.
They're trying to make him maybe look bad. All right, so I'm going to kind of just jump into what happened to Lewis. So after winning a re-election for that alderman seat in what ABC 7 reported as a landslide, just 2 days after he announces his congressional run, tragedy strikes. So Lewis was working in his ward office at night in the winter of 1973, where he's shot and killed. So this is what we know. And I just want to say a trigger warning because the content is a bit graphic. A janitor found Lewis and he was manacled to his office chair, meaning he was handcuffed to the chair or tied to the seat in some way. 3 shots to the head were taken, and the ABC 7 article noted that the police said that it was clear that the gun a 38 caliber was pressed against his head. So it was like a direct shot.
This is crazy.
And they also indicated that he was tortured as there were cigarette burns on his arm. And a ProPublica article noted that a bloodstained couch cushion covered his head. So and I'm not going to post these pictures because they're graphic, but in some of the images, like from the police photos, like he's kind of face down, like attached to the chair, and the pillow's on the side. So it was like the pillow was like covering him when they found him.
So can I ask you a question? Was Buddy Cianci one of the suspects? DED, dead.
Yeah.
Burning him with the cigarettes. Oh my God, I love that.
God, yeah, it's like a mob thing, right?
I don't mean to interrupt this.
Which we'll see that there may have been a little bit of a mob thing happening.
Ooh.
So there was a little blood found at the scene, but there were some blood stains like leading down the stairs, which suggested that the killers probably came in through the back door and then left that same day or same way rather. And he was found to have a small amount of alcohol in his newspaper, which they found strange because a newspaper at the time reported, quote, police have been unable to find any person who had seen him take a drink, even in celebration of election victories. So he was someone that didn't drink at all. So some people thought that, quote, Lewis may have shared his first and last drink with his killer, where they're like, drink up, buddy. Like, this is going to happen, you know?
Shit.
Yeah. I mean, how scary.
Yeah.
So scary. And another thing that I found that was incredibly sad was it is coming from like his wife's perspective of what happened. And she noticed that she woke up the next morning and she noticed that he didn't come home the night before. And she said to the Tribune, quote, his shoes, which he always left outside the door of his bedroom, were not in the usual place. So she calls the office to see if he's there, and a police officer answered the phone, and she's like, is he there? And he's like, it's not good. And she's like, what happened? And he was shot. And she's like, is he dead? Yes. And so like he learns like that he's been killed. So, I mean, there's no charges, there's no sentencing, nothing like that, because this still remains unsolved today. And some of the aftermath, Fred Mitchell, who was a precinct captain at the time, he heard about the murder. And when he was asking like people like what happened, the person that he talked to said, quote, the syndicate killed him, which is the mob.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And at one point, an FBI informant claimed members of the Jewish mafia, this guy, Lenny Patrick and Dave Yaris, who oversaw gambling in the 24th Ward, may have been involved. ProPublica noted details of the tip. Quote, informant further stated that Leonard Patrick and David Yaris control the ward in which Alderman Ben Lewis was slain. Source heard that Alderman Lewis, before his assassination, was not cooperating with the criminal element in Chicago. So the mob was, like, hey, like, we're running this.
Yeah,
and
you got to give us a kickback.
And he's not going along with it. And so, like, they may have taken him out.
Oh, man.
But nothing really ever comes of that tip. And Patrick, years later, like decades later, because he's like this mob boss, ends up in jail for other murders and other like things that he committed over the years. And this is like in the 1990s, he has a cellmate, this guy, Daniel Longoria, who claimed to have had a conversation with Patrick, where he claimed that Patrick told him that he got a cop to kill Lewis because Lewis was conducting unauthorized horse racing out of his office. So he's doing this other gambling racket, allegedly, out of his office. And, the mob is like, dude, I need to wet my beak. I run gambling. Now you're running gambling. That doesn't happen. Right.
Yeah.
But the issue with this tip is that some of the details of how Lewis was killed did not match up with what the police knew. So they're like, is this a bullshit tip? So they couldn't really it didn't really hold water, So some other suspects was Thomas Shaky Tom Anderson and Jimmy Kid Rivera Williams, who were part of the policy racket end of the mob. And both of them were questioned. They were both given lie detectors. And this happened at a time where when someone was given a lie detector and they passed, they're like, okay, you're cleared. Where today we know they don't even hold up in court anymore. They still use them to try to gauge some things and get some info.
Yeah,
but back then it was sort of considered as a valid thing. So they let them go. All right. Historian Lindbergh had this to say: "This kind of treachery was nothing new to Chicago, but the Ben Lewis murder kind of capped off an open lawlessness in the city with regards to its politicians that have been going on really since the time of Al Capone. Of course, with Chicago gangland history as it is, there were no arrests, there were no immediate suspects, and the case went cold. It was one of 1,000 unsolved murders that was attributed to organized crime."
Wow.
So, you know, that's kind of where they were leaning with it. And other theories, and this was from ProPublica, that there was disputes over illegal gambling. And some thought that it could have been issues with Lewis's challenge to the plantation politics that were happening. So they really, again, don't know, but they know that there's something kind of mob, some, like leadership related, perhaps. The New York Times reported that 5,000 people showed up for Lewis's funeral, where the remaining Black aldermen served as pallbearers. And the mayor noted that Lewis, quote, "gave everything he had to his constituents."
It's awful.
So some points of interest. One thing I found interesting is that he was allegedly on the phone the night of the murder, and the phone call ended abruptly. So the man he was speaking to was a police officer named James Gilbert. And Gilbert said that he heard something and then the phone call just stopped, and he never called back. So some people wonder, like, did Gilbert call Lewis like, "Hey, I'm going to make sure he's in that office"?
That's right.
On the horn.
Yes.
Or did Lewis call, or did he call Lewis to be like, "Yo, you better get the hell out, like something's going down"?
Ooh.
Or was it just an innocent phone call? Like, nobody knows, but it's just kind of odd that, like, at that moment. And then why don't you call back?
Yeah.
Because if something like that, and you're a cop, you would be like, "What the hell happened?"
To be suspicious of everything.
Right.
Of course.
I don't know. And then some people argued, so JFK's assassination happens like months after this, and then boom, that's the news everywhere, right? And so all of that news, some people say that kind of like took away from his murder, because like now everyone's consumed with this story. And sometimes, like, if you're not in the media, if the press isn't talking about it, like it kind of goes away.
Yeah.
His case file is still open today.
Wow.
And he is the last political figure to be murdered in Chicago.
Wow.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting too. Some people felt that this was a message to Black political leaders, showing what would happen if you don't yield to white politicians in charge, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And then I want to just talk about that smear campaign. ProPublica brings up some interesting info. So I noted earlier that there are two sort of different versions happening at the time of Lewis's murder. We have, I'm sorry, my son's going in and out. We have the people who were sort of pro-Lewis, talking about his advocacy and the work for the ward. And then we have the other that showed him as this guy living above his means and chasing women. And police allegedly were leaking information that attacked Lewis's reputation and credibility. So we have to think, like, why would they do this? And we know that a lot of times the mob is kind of linked up with some, you know, police, right? Yeah. That's not like an uncommon thing, that there are alliances there.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense that they would then try to paint Lewis in that negative light. So some things they accused Lewis of: taking money from his clients' insurance premiums to fund his lifestyle and to keep his real estate business going. But an informant told an FBI agent, quote, "The stories concerning Lewis's personal life are being manufactured to dirty him up in order to make it appear the city didn't lose too great an alderman." And so many saw this as a political murder, like I said, because he wouldn't follow orders. And the only sort of good thing that sort of came out of this is there's a street like named in his honor.
Oh my God.
That's about it. Like, nothing was really ever done. And people are still curious. There's a great ProPublica article that like really like calls out like some of the cops that they think did it, and really focuses on those mobsters that I mentioned, and how like that's where he thinks like the guilt lies.
Yeah.
I thought was interesting. But that's the story of the unsolved murder of Chicago Alderman Ben Lewis.
I love it. I love this idea. Like, it probably could be both. He could be a really good alderman and cares about the people and does all these things for the community, and also run around and do all these kinds of things. Like, he could be both people.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, one's going to catch up with the other. Usually the bad stuff is the one that gets Ooh, Tina, you know, I'm a Chicago baby.
I know, a little murder mystery.
All right. Let me move my screen around here so we can look at
I know, now I'm full screen, so now I get to relax.
This is so weird to do it. And you know, I keep looking at myself. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like it. Well, girl, you know, I'm bitter as hell. You know, I can't let shit go. You know, I gotta keep going. So today, I am going to cover U.S. House Rep from South Texas, Henry Cuellar, who I talked about last week and mispronounced his last name. His last name is spelled Cuellar. It's pronounced Cuellar. And he is the last pro-life Democrat in the House.
Get that wonderful little progressive woman,
Jessica Cisneros. Yes, Jessica Cisneros, who I will talk about as well. But I thought, you know what?
I want to get her on Lil Muck.
Ooh, yes.
I think I may have emailed her like last year, because doesn't she hold, she's like active.
Yes, she's yes. So I want to talk about this guy because this episode comes out on May 18th, and I believe it's May 24th. I have the date later on in the story, but May 24th is their runoff. They just had,
oh, please,
so it's their primary. So they just had a runoff because there were so many.
Yes, I saw that.
And the two of them had the most. It's like 800 votes is the difference between the two of them. So they go to a runoff, and it's going to be May 24th.
Please let her win. I mean, I feel like now with all of the issues with women's reproductive health and rights and abortion and all of this, like, she can win.
I think she can. And I also think that, you know,
I hope this is where we fling into the progressive wing of the party. You know what I mean?
That's what needs to happen.
This is, it's enough already.
I hear you. So let's talk about this guy, because he is confusing as hell, girl. He confuses me on issues. I'm like, So, okay, Cuellar was born in Laredo, Texas, the county seat of Webb County in South Texas, where he resided most of his life. His Mexican-American parents, Martin Cuellar Sr. and Odia Perez, a native of Zapata, Texas, traveled as far as north as Idaho each year doing migrant labor until Martin found work as a gardener and ranch manager in Texas. With 8 children, the Cuellar family lived on Reynolds Street in the Las Lomas neighborhood of the Heights area of Laredo, and his parents spoke no English. Okay. And so there's parts of this country you can go to and never have to speak English. Like, this is South Texas. It's close. You know what I mean? So the community there, nobody really, same thing in Miami. There's Cubans who have been here for 60 years. They have never spoken English. They can get around Hialeah and Miami without having any issue whatsoever. I've gone to Hialeah. I went into a Walgreens once in Hialeah, and the person was talking to me in Spanish, and I was like, yeah, no, like, it's the first language there. Like, the English is not the first language in Hialeah, which is great. It's an immigrant community. That's what America is.
Do what you do.
Do whatever you do.
I have to say, I kind of like that, and I wish that would have stayed. Like, I would love, like, you know, Little Italy, where everyone's only speaking Italian, or you know, wherever it is where people just felt like they could just really keep their heritage and their language and their culture and not have to assimilate. Like, it sucks. Like, we would be so much richer as a country.
I agree. So he received an Associate of Arts degree from Laredo Community College, where he later taught courses in government. He then attended the Walsh School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University and graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Science degree in Foreign Service. He also earned a Master's of Arts in International Trade from Texas A&M University, International University, a Juris Doctor from the University of Texas School of Law, and a PhD from the University of Texas at Austin. So very educated, right? He opened his own law firm in Laredo in 1981 and became a licensed customs broker in 1983. And from 1984 to 86, he taught at Texas A&M International University as an adjunct professor of international commercial law.
Wow.
So he served in the Texas House of Representatives from 1987 to 2001.
Wow.
A long fucking time. And he represented most of Laredo.
So he's a long time politician.
Yeah.
So move out the way for someone else. Move out of the way.
Hi. So during his 14 years as a state rep, he served in leadership positions on the House Appropriations, Higher Education, and Calendar committees. He also served on several national legislative committees dealing with state budgets, the U.S.-Mexico border, and international trade. In 2001, Governor Rick Perry appointed Cuellar to be Secretary of State, and he served in the office for just over 9 months until he resigned to run for the U.S. House. And as of 2022, Cuellar is the last Democrat to have served in that role. So remember, we all know Rick Perry.
Yeah.
He likes to disguise himself in those black glasses now. Like,
oh my God.
We see you. We know who you are. We know you're Rick Perry. We can't hide you, big dummy. Remember how dumb he was in those presidential debates?
Oh my God. I mean,
so much joy. He's so dumb.
But compared to some of these yahoos that we have running now, that conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
he was just dumb. He didn't believe in crazy.
Yeah.
He tried to convince you of it.
Yeah.
So in 2002, he was a Democratic nominee for the House of Representatives in Texas's 23rd congressional district, and he loses to 5-term incumbent, a Republican, Henry Bonilla, 52 to 47%. And it was the closest race that Bonilla had ever faced. And 2004, he spent much of early 2000 for the 2004 race. He spent much of early 2003 preparing for a rematch with Bonilla. And the 2003 Texas redistricting, however, shifted most of Laredo, which had been the heart of the 23rd since its creation in 1966, into the 28th district, represented by Ciro Rodriguez, who was a Democrat, right? So now he's got to kind of shift, Cuellar does, a lot of what he's a Democrat, right? But now his district is going to run for, has been redistricted to be more liberal.
I'm sick of these redistricting. Like,
oh yeah,
just get we've talked about this before. Get people in who are statisticians. Am I saying that right? People who are trained to know how to do this and make it equitable, and be done with it. Like, it should not just be like the party in power. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, well,
on either side. You know what I mean?
This is what happens when you give power to people. And again, I've said this before on the podcast. It's for my 5th time saying it with redistricting. If the Democrats were as fucking conniving as Republicans were when they had power and could redistrict, maybe I'd be okay with it. But that's never what happens. The same thing with like stacking the courts. Everybody's talking about stacking the courts. Biden will never do it, but guarantee the next Republican president will stack the fucking court. Like, they will take advantage of the things that they can do.
They've already stacked the courts. Trump filled in so many damn seats.
They want more.
Which is why when we lost that thing on appeals in the state of Florida for the voting rights, because we have judges that are appointed by that nut job. It was hundreds of judges.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he was a Trump appointee, but
by the way,
those seats.
While we're talking about that, I don't know if you saw this, but the first judge who was a Trump appointee, the redistricting maps in Florida, he threw them out, and he said they're unconstitutional.
Thank God.
So ding dong, DeSantis is going to appeal it. So who knows who the next judge is, but this judge was like, I don't fucking think so. It's completely unconstitutional, which is why it's such a fucking waste of time that they spent so much time
and money
and money.
Not
by the way, I don't know if you know this, but our Secretary of State
I was just going to say that.
There's an election here in 3 months, and the Secretary of State who's in charge of that just resigned. Now,
and
why do you think she resigned? Why do you think?
Guess who he put in charge?
Yeah, a fucking a QAnon conspiracy theorist, Proud Boy or some fucking
associated with the Proud Boys, and his wife.
Yes,
is in charge of education.
They're QAnon people.
She is a real conspiracy theorist.
This
in
is
charge of education.
Tina,
she's an idiot.
It's like,
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But conspiracy theorist people, like, get your head out of your ass.
It's like you signing up to go teach at a school, and the day before school starts, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to be there. And the school's like, what the fuck? We got to get a teacher, right? Yeah. This lady's like, peace. Like, what is it you think that they told her they need her to do? She was like, I'm not doing it.
Like,
and they said, give us your fucking resignation. Yeah. Something was going to happen with this election coming up.
I can't.
Let me tell you something. Whoever the Democratic nominee is and goes up against DeSantis, I don't know about those results, unless it's a fucking landslide for DeSantis, which is entirely possible. If it's close, he's going to have somebody call that for him. I mean, something fucked up is going to happen. Right?
I think that maybe I'm being naive, but I really think Nikki Fried can do this.
Oh, I think so too.
I think that if we just give her a chance, I love the spitfire
Yeah.
vibe of Nikki Fried. Like she just says it how it is.
Oh.
And we need that. We need someone to keep
Yes.
calling him out, calling him out, calling him out, calling him out.
Speaking of Nikki Fried, I don't know if you've noticed this on her Twitter, but she's saying it everywhere. She has agreed to 5 live debates on TV. Charlie Crist will not debate her.
Because
he will not agree to this.
He's afraid.
Why won't he do this?
And he gets to just walk in. Like we as constituents deserve to hear people who are running for office. We should be able to hear how they debate, how they stand on the issues. And we should be able to, that like it should be required. You should be required so that we can understand.
But it's the optics. It's the optics. Think about what it looks like with Nikki Fried, young, youthful, beautiful, smart, fire, intelligent.
It's the
standing next to this old grasshopper.
It's the Nixon Kennedy thing.
Yeah, that's why they don't want to fucking do it. She said, dust off your fan.
I know.
It's a great Charlie Crist joke, by the way. Everywhere he goes, he's got a little tiny fan underneath his podium. One time he wouldn't go on the stage to debate Rick Scott because there was no fan under his podium.
I mean, what a baby. What a baby.
He's a queen, honey. He's a queen. So in this new district, Cuellar had to challenge Ciro Rodriguez, who was the Dem in that district, who was a former friend of his. So he had to challenge him for the nomination, and he won the Dem nomination by 58 votes. And the Washington Post described this campaign as, quote, nasty, with Cuellar claiming Rodriguez was an AWOL congressman. This is somebody who was his friend. While Rodriguez called Cuellar a political opportunist, which is exactly who he is and who Charlie Crist is as well.
A lot of them.
Yeah. The initial count, which is very clear. The clearest way you know that Charlie Crist is a political opportunist is he changed his fucking party like 3 times. Whew.
I know. And so I want to play devil's advocate here. I feel like if somebody wants to change a party and, you know, that you don't have to be like locked in, like maybe something happens and you're like, and you realize, wow, I made this. I'm just thinking of, you know, Emerson, where, you know, being, you know, where you can, you know, speak your truth one day and that the next day it contradicts everything you said the day before. If that's your truth today, speak that truth. Like I wanna give people that leeway. However, I feel like we can recognize like what this is kind of about here.
First of all, I would understand. I would say, okay, maybe.
Right.
If it didn't happen in the middle of a fucking campaign.
No, I know.
Right? If he was the Republican nominee for that U.S. Senate seat, Marco Rubio was clearly winning and says, I'll run as an independent. Maybe I'll win this way. Like just clearly because he was not going to get the nomination, he changed. That's fucking insane. And I think the only reason he became a Democrat is because when he hugged Obama on that fucking airstrip that day, Republicans turned their back on him.
They turned on him.
And he was like, well, this is the party that will take me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't think
No, you're right.
Otherwise, I hear you because listen, the party's extreme. Both parties can be a bit extreme, but the Republican Party is insane right now. And so I don't blame people for like changing their
ship and like,
I get it. I get it. Okay, so quote, Rodriguez filed, so the initial count gave Rodriguez a 145 vote lead, but after a recount, Cuellar led by the 58 votes. And there was a quote, Rodriguez filed a lawsuit questioning the eligibility of hundreds of voters. A state appeals court ruled against Rodriguez, guaranteeing Cuellar the nomination. And Cuellar's victory was only one of 2 primaries upsets of incumbents from either party in the entire country. And the 28th district leans far more Democratic than the 23rd. And Cuellar's victory in the general election was a foregone conclusion. So he goes in November and he wins the seat. So now he is a congressman. And some of his assignments, he was on the Committee for Appropriations and the Committee for Homeland Security. And he was a member of the After School Caucus. I have no idea what that is. Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Blue Dog Coalition, which by the way, I looked up. Do you know what the Blue Dog Coalition is?
What is that?
Those are for centrists, right? So you're in your party, whether you're Republican or Democrat, but you're in the middle. You're not to the right, right? You're not to the far to the left or to the right. And you advocate for military spending. Why would they need a coalition for that?
We have so much money that goes.
We spend all our money on the military. What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm sick of it.
He was on the United States Congressional International Conservation Caucus, the U.S.-Japan Caucus, and the New Democrat Coalition. And he was easily reelected in 2006, 2008, 2010, 2012, 2014, 2016, and 2018. Like
Wow.
barely a Democrat would run against him, and they would put a Republican against him, and it was like a blowout. Like there's no coming up there, right? But now we get to 2020, right? And then on January 11, 2019, the progressive organization Justice Democrats, which supported U.S. Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's successful 2019 primary campaign in New York City, announced that it was seeking a primary challenger against Cuellar in the Democratic primary scheduled for March 4th, 2020. So they went out to recruit a Democrat. Oh, we don't know what that means.
I know. I know. That's
why
what
would we do that?
Like, can we just all just become the progressive Dems?
Yes, but why would we go out and do that? Why would the Democratic Party ever look for somebody to run against Cuellar? Why would they do that? He only votes with Republicans. He's against fucking abortion, but he's okay. We're going to keep him here because he's reliable. He's a seat that they know. You win over a fucking 12-year period,
and
they know they can get him back
there. And if he's been there for 12 years, he's probably wheeling and dealing with people. And they're like, oh, we need him because of this bill, or we need him because of this. Like, so they already have shit in mind that they know they can count on him for. And a new person is, especially if it's like an amazing AOC type person who will call people out even within the party. They don't want that.
They don't want that. So,
and this is what I'm dying for. I want to see this everywhere.
Me too. On July 13th, 2019, the Justice Democrats organization announced its support for Jessica Cisneros, who at the time was a 26-year-old immigration and human rights attorney from Laredo, where he's where the seat is, who had announced a primary campaign against Cuellar. And Cuellar defeated Cisneros 51.8% to 48.2% and was reelected in November 2020. A difference of 850 votes.
It's nothing.
850 votes. So I'm not really a big fan of like putting the person back up the two years later, but she was so close that it's like she's got name recognition in the community. Now you got 2 years under Trump that they can talk about how important is Trump, and he's still pro-life. Like we've got enough to still.
And again, he can be pro-life for his own personal whatever belief that is.
Yes.
But that's not everyone's belief, and he shouldn't, as an elected, impose that belief. Like I just, this is, and we keep talking about it. It really comes down a lot of the times back to religious. They're religious.
It's what it is for him.
You know, and you are not allowed to have your religious beliefs dictate someone else's body.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there are so many atheists in this country, and I feel like the younger generations really are really moving away from religion, and now they're going to be trapped under laws from these people, you know, these old people that are ahead of them. No.
So in 2022, Cuellar, which is what just happened a few weeks ago, Cuellar finished first with the plurality in the Democratic primary, tallying 23,552 votes over Cisneros, who had 22,745 votes, 807 vote difference. But it's close enough. The percentage is close enough. I think it's like within 5% that it kicks into a runoff. So now their runoff election is May 24th. It's 6 days from today. I don't know if Tina would like this.
We have people in Texas. We have listeners in Texas. Please go vote. Go vote. Tell people
if you
that
know
to vote.
Yes. And also go to Jessica Cisneros for Congress.com and give her some money. There are really great organizations dumping a lot of money. Emily's List, Planned Parenthood, the Justice Democrats are dumping tons of money into her campaign. But compared to the hundreds of millions of dollars that corporate Democrats and people like Nancy Pelosi who go out and advocate for this guy, who come into town and all the old fucks are like, Nancy's here. They fucking love it. And if Nancy touches you with her golden finger, there's a good chance. But 800 votes is a lot. 800 votes is enough. And with what has happened last Sunday with Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned, maybe that's enough too. This is going to be a very
that's what I think. That's what I think.
To see if that actually affects people, because maybe it could affect someone like a Chippemarka who is very pro-life in a very blue district. So I don't know. So I want to read a quote that, because Cisneros, I think it was the Monday after that Roe v. Wade thing, draft was leaked, she went on her Twitter and she put a video up and she calls out Dem leadership. And she's like, I am running against the last pro-life Democrat here. This is how she started to get a bunch of attention. And Pelosi, of course, going to town with Cuellar. But she's like, I'm asking for Dem leadership to denounce him and not endorse him. Like, she's literally saying to them, this is not right. So here's this is a quote from the video. Quote, at every turn, my congressman has stood in opposition to the Democratic Party agenda, from being anti-union to anti-choice. And with the House majority on the line, Cuellar could very much be the deciding vote on the future of reproductive rights in this country. And we just cannot afford that risk. And we can't. Absolutely. This is not okay. So I wanted to tell a little bit about some of the issues with Cuellar and where he goes back and forth, because immigration is a huge one for him. It's like he does the one thing and the next thing he's something else, and I'm like, I don't fucking.
And wait, didn't you see that his family were like migrant farmers?
Yes, Mexican American. His parents were Mexican American.
What is he doing?
I don't know. That's what I'm telling you. It's just so fucking weird. Besides that, like, just even, I'm gonna read the back and forth where I'm just like, I'm confused. Where do you stand? You know? I mean, he did come out and say quite a few things against Trump and how Trump talked about Mexicans. I mean, he was on the right side of all of that. But when it comes to votes and bills and legislation, it's very bizarre.
That's where it counts.
That's where it matters.
Right? You can be the mouthpiece, right? You could be a talking head all day long.
Yeah.
But if you're not pushing the button and you're not voting for the right things, it doesn't matter what you say.
Yes.
Like, crow about Trump all day. Who gives a shit? Like, you're not helping.
Put your money where your mouth is, motherfucker. Yeah. In 2011, Cuellar was the author and one of two main co-sponsors of legislation seeking to honor slain ICE agent Jamie Zapata. So Zapata was an ICE agent who worked on the U.S.-Mexico border, and he was ambushed and murdered by the Mexican criminal group Los Zetas in San Luis Potosí, Mexico. And so it was billed as a border security bill, and it would increase cooperation among state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies during investigations of human and drug smuggling from Mexico. So it becomes something else. They sell it as, we're honoring the slain ICE agent, which, you know, I'm not for anybody, you know, he's in the line of duty. He should not be,
especially from a gang that, you know, no.
Yes. So but then in the bill, it's all this other shit. So it's like, oh, you don't support ICE, you don't support the police. Like, if you don't vote for this, you don't support this slain officer. But in the bill is just garbage. And that's such fucking bullshit. It's that fucking twist of words and you know what I mean? Language. Yeah. It's so fucking horrible. In 2013, in a statement with House colleagues Beto O'Rourke and Fiamon Villa Jr., Cuellar renewed his opposition to a border fence along the Rio Grande between U.S. and Mexico, and he denounced inclusion in the Senate immigration bill of an amendment sponsored by Senators Bob Corker and John Hoeven that called for 700 additional miles of border fencing, calling the fence an antiquated solution to a modern problem. Okay, so he's not for border fencing. Okay. The fence, he said, ignores the economic ties between the two nations, which reached $500 billion in 2012. I think that people really don't get the amount of money. When Trump says, fuck Mexico, we're going to put a wall up, the billions of dollars that from trade and everything else, labor that goes in between these two countries is insane. And so you can't just, you know, it's like saying the shit about China. We have so much money on the line that we are in debt to China. It's fucking insane to me that we could be like Fanculo, like, what the fuck? You can't do that. You can literally can't fucking do it.
But they do it just for the sound bites. You know what I mean?
You know who's big on that? Marco Rubio with China. Big with him. In 2014, Cuellar was the only House Democrat to vote for a bill that would have made it easier to deport unaccompanied minors to Central America. Again, what? So you're not for the fence, but you're like, get them all out. Like, it's so insane.
Doesn't make sense.
He also released unauthorized photographs of unsanitary conditions in Border Patrol detention centers, like, to bring attention to it. Like, okay,
so that's good.
Despite these actions, Cuellar said he firmly supports, quote, comprehensive immigration reform. In May 2015, Cuellar called for 55. This is very interesting to me. Very interesting. In May 2015, Cuellar called for 55 more federal judges to handle the overload of 450,000 immigration cases. There were 206 such judges in 58 courts, and 28 of them serve in Texas. But there's no immigration judge who holds court in Laredo, right, where Cuellar is. But many of those people were awaiting hearings and were held at detention centers and not or released on bond. And so many of those cases that were on bond never come back to their hearings, right? So people come into the country illegally, they're let out on bond, like, okay, go out and then come back. They never come back. And so he's like, we need judges here. Yeah, we need judges here, or they're going to get sent back, right? But they're, so he's like, we need more judges so that we can get people out of detention centers and send them back to where they're supposed to go, because we let them out on bond and they disappear. And I think, he said that South Texas and Laredo needs these judges. And I don't disagree with him. The immigration system is fucking broken. It is broken. And I work for a construction company, and we have had plenty of employees come to us and work for us for more than a decade. And we help them every step of the way to write letters to the judges, to their attorneys, to help them. The amount of money these folks have paid to attorneys and into the system to get their green cards and get their immigration status to become citizens of the United States. It's a decades-long process that costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And if you're lucky enough to work for an employer and you have your work visa, like,
that will help
you're able to do those things. But like, it's insane, the process. It should not be this fucking hard for people. It really shouldn't. Bullshit. So on July 23rd, 2015, the occasion of Donald Trump's presidential campaign visit to Laredo, Cuellar said that Trump had, quote, overgeneralized and exacerbated a rhetoric of immigrant crime that has offended many, particularly those of Mexican heritage, end quote. Cuellar added that Trump's meeting with border officials provided an opportunity for him to view Laredo as a, quote, culturally rich and safe border community, end quote. Cuellar was one of 3 Democrats to vote for Kate's Law, which expands maximum sentences for immigrants who re-enter the U.S. after being deported. Why? Just, deport. Why are you, what? Expand them. He supported legislation. Excuse me, I'm spitting. He supported legislation to strip federal funding for jurisdictions that have sanctuary policies in place. Sanctuary cities. He wants to take money away from them.
He's very,
this is a very weird thing. I know he probably has a very particular view on what immigration should be.
Right.
Punish
like
the people
how
who come
people
in.
should come in. And
Yeah.
And then if they're, I don't know Kate's Law, and I don't know why they're being deported. If they're being deported because they've committed a crime or something like that, maybe that would be a different issue. It's complicated.
It's a very, very complicated issue, but it's something that we really need to get a hold of. And it doesn't help that we had a president for 4 years who was so
criminalized,
America First nationalist that made this all really, really bad, So legalizing marijuana in 2020, Cuellar was one of 6 House Democrats to vote against the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act to legalize cannabis at the federal level. Why?
I mean, at this point, there are so many states, and I think that it's an issue that when you have so many states that are now legalizing it, but on the federal level, it's not, like, it causes a problem.
We talked about this
not only that,
but
that the marijuana is like in that first class, like they still have it listed as like the same level of narcotic as like heroin and cocaine, which, they know now that it's not that level of drug class, but it's still like that. And so that's like an immediate felony. So it's really putting a lot of people at risk, especially in, I would imagine, communities like his.
Yeah. In 2014, he was the lone Democrat on the House Appropriations Committee to vote for a measure blocking the implementation of Washington, D.C. decriminalization law for marijuana. Cuellar has also repeatedly voted against the Royer-Bacher-Farr Amendment, a legislation that limits the enforcement of federal law in states that have legalized medical cannabis. So this is what we talked about with Nikki Fried, where she was suing the Biden administration. It was about, we have medical marijuana is legal here, and people want to own guns, and on the federal level, they can't get their gun license, and it's not okay. And so, it's like what you said. We have problems now with states are legalizing it.
Yeah.
So other issues were Cuellar rejected the first House bailout bill, which was voted down, but backed the final version that passed in the fall of 2008, when Obama just became president. The banks were fucking collapsing. And we had to do that.
I remember.
He voted against the first one, but then eventually voted for the full thing. He was also one of 27 Democrats to oppose the House Financial Regulatory Reform Bill, a top priority for Obama. Again, this is when the banks were failing. We were trying to make sure that it never happened again. Oh, he don't want to vote for that.
Yeah, they don't, well, because they don't care.
Yeah. On June 26, 2009, Cuellar voted with the House majority to pass the American Clean Energy and Security Act, also known as the Cap and Trade Bill. He also supported the Affordable Care Act for America Act, which narrowly passed the House, and in December 2009 met the threshold for shutting off debate in the U.S. Senate by a single vote. In February 2020, Cuellar was one of 7 House Democrats to vote against the Protecting the Right to Organize Act that would overhaul labor laws.
I mean, why would he vote against that, especially where he's living? Which I would imagine.
By the way, that's like we said, like Cisneros said, this is a democratic value. We are pro-union.
Yes.
We're pro-labor law to protect.
Hello, all you people who want to work 9 to 5.
Yeah,
it was unions that did that.
In March 2021, he was the only Democrat to vote against it again. And in August 2021, Cuellar joined a group of conservative Democrats dubbed, quote, the Unbreakable Nine, who threatened to derail the Biden administration's $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation package meant to address the nation's physical infrastructure and social safety net.
You know, and I know everybody talks about that, but I have to say, with that act,
Build Back Better.
The Build Back Better, but with that act,
yeah,
the amount of jobs, because what do we spend we pay our taxes because we need to fix our roads, we need to fix our bridges. You can't just let that stuff go, because then something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of jobs.
Yep.
That's a lot of jobs for people. If you're doing that across America and you're fixing all of this old infrastructure,
yeah,
it's providing, especially people in our rural communities, in our Midwestern communities who are desperate for industry because different industries have gone by the wayside. Like they don't want to think about that, because it's all about, everything is optics, 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 and they don't care about our country.
Yep, you're absolutely right. So abortion. As an anti-abortion Democrat, Cuellar expressed concerns that the Senate health care bill allowed federal funding for abortion. He has voted for a ban on abortion after week 20. On March 21st, 2010, Cuellar voted for the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, which passed the House by a vote of 219 to 212. This also, remember, was, from my recollection, I should have looked it up first, but my recollection was where they take money away from any organization that provides abortions. They start to like defund.
Yeah, the defunding Planned Parenthood and all that.
Yeah. And in 2021, he was the only Democrat to vote against the Women's Health Protection Act, which aims to preserve access to abortion nationwide. This is, again, what they just tried to pass in the Senate this week, and they failed because they're fucking losers. The act was proposed in response to the Texas Heartbeat Act, which bans abortion after 6 weeks in Texas. House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, whose name I also got wrong last week, because I got to tell you, I'm not I don't jerk off to these people. All right. I think I called him Clyburn, Clymer. I don't know what I called him last week, but he can go fuck himself. He's the number 3 House Dem. And he said this week, while in Texas with Cuellar, Jim Clyburn said, quote, "We have a big tent party. And if we're going to be a big tent party, we got to be a big tent party. I don't believe we ought to have a litmus test in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, you should.
I think we have to bring as many people into the party as we possibly can," end quote. And then he said, quote, "Would you rather have a pro-life Democrat or an anti-abortion Republican," end quote. That's the question. And here's the thing. These are our choices, Jim Clyburn.
Yeah.
Are these our choices? Because from what I know, there's a goddamn dynamo 27-year-old Latina human rights attorney, progressive woman who is pro-choice, who's running against him. And that's a choice. It's not between Cuellar and a Republican. Right. You have somebody in this race to run against him, but you're too fucking lazy to do the work and endorse this woman. That's the fucking thing, is you're lazy as fuck, and you'd rather go with the old reliable, which is what the Democrats do, instead of taking a choice and actually putting it on the fucking line and supporting somebody who actually stands up for our values.
And imagine if they did. And imagine if they did.
What would the fucking Senate and House look like right now?
And if they want to be a big tent party, like, we're not bringing in young people with antiquated ideas. We're not.
Big tent party is how we lose.
And
I've talked to a candidate running here for a Florida House seat here. And they were saying to me that it is mind-blowing how many different places they have to go to present themselves as a candidate. They have to go and kiss the ring of people in clubs and caucuses all over this county that are people who have been in power in these clubs and caucuses, like I said earlier, for 30 years. And if you walk in and they don't know you, they're like, who are you? Who am I? Who the fuck are you? Just because you've held a position as a volunteer in a Democratic club or caucus, you're nobody. You are fucking nobody. And people who are really good candidates owe you nothing, except they want to fucking do best by their community, and they're qualified and they're talented and they deserve the fucking seat. But they got to come kiss the ring of some old motherfucker who retired here 30 years ago and got involved in politics and just so happened to like fall into a position, and they think they know what's best.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, fuck you. Fuck you.
Ridiculous.
Make room in the fucking tent for good people who are young and want to,
they want to make change.
Anybody who wants to run for fucking office? I know. Somebody who's as extremely intelligent and talented as Jessica Cisneros wants to run. Yeah. And you want to tell her no? Are you out of your
They should be uplifting her. And the whole money situation is a problem. Yeah. This guy, you said, has so much money. And this is where, again, election campaign finance reform needs to happen, because it's not fair that someone is pushed out of an election because they are young and they don't have maybe the ability to raise $100 million like someone who's been sitting around for 14 years. And that's not how our government should work. It should not work that whoever has the biggest treasure chest gets the seat.
And this
it should be capped. Everything should be capped. Everything should be equal, and it should be fair across the board.
This Jim Clyburn, this guy who's the House Majority Whip, if you look at the corporations who donate to him, the same corporations donate to fucking Cuellar. So when those corporations say to you, get your fucking ass down to Texas and stump,
you're gonna go because they want the money.
Do it. That's why Pelosi's there too.
Well, and that's why when candidates say that their campaign is a grassroots campaign and they're only taking the money from the people, like those are people I trust more. Absolutely. Because they're like, people are giving money to them because they trust them in some way, or they really believe in them, and they're not going to be beholden to some corporate entity that wants you to vote on some bill in 2 years. Right. That's not how our politics should be working. Absolutely. And it's all, and that was all Republicans of getting more and more corporations involved in the political process and getting religious entities involved in our political process. Yep. And it's destroyed the political process in America. Yeah. So a quote, I wanted to find a quote from him about abortion. And he has said, quote, recently, as a lifelong Catholic, I've always been pro-life. I do not support abortion. However, we cannot have an outright ban. There must be exceptions in the case of rape, incest, danger to the life. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I am sick of it that a woman who has been assaulted, like, okay, then we can feel sorry for her, but any other, I'm done. I am done with this whole thing. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. Well, I got to say this too. I want to remind everybody that being Catholic is not an excuse to be pro-life. I am Catholic. I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-women. I'm pro-reproductive freedom for women. And according to Pew Research, as of last year, 56% of Catholics favor keeping abortion legal. 56% of Catholics. Yeah, there's actually... And Catholic women take birth control. Catholic women support abortion. Catholics, which are all sins according to the church. Yeah, but you know what? But there is a group, and it's Catholic Women for Abortion. There is like an organization within sort of the umbrella of Catholicism and women under there that exists. But unfortunately, SCOTUS, who are all these damn judges? They're all extreme Catholics on there. All of them are Catholic. Yes. But I hate this idea of like, this is an excuse as a Catholic. That is not an excuse that I fucking, that can be your personal, like have your personal thing, but you can't push that on anyone. And I think that it's really fucked up that someone comes out and says that.
And, you know, growing up as a Catholic, I still identify as a Catholic, and I would, even our children, we raise them Catholic because that's what my ex-husband really wanted to do. That's his gig. And I'm like, cool, fine. Because I grew up Catholic and I could also like see the ways of the church as I got older. But every fucking Sunday we took these kids to church until COVID happened. And I was like, I'm not going to church anymore. But we took those kids to church every single Sunday. And the second somebody from the pulpit mentioned abortion, I grabbed my purse and I walked the fuck out. And because when I was growing up, that never happened. No. You would never go to church and hear about anything that had to do with abortion. It was uplifting. It talked about, it like kicked off your week to have faith in the world and gave you a little bit of a fucking boost to get through the week. As a child, that's how I felt. As an adult going to the Catholic Church, it's not the same anymore. No. And as soon as they would come out, I'd be like, why am I going to a church where they're talking about abortion? It's inappropriate. One of the churches we went to had in the back of the church on a table the gestation period of women in the womb, like a model. Now, what the fuck is that doing? Why is science?
Why is that in the church?
It's not science.
No.
What is it doing in here? But it wants you to see. They want you to see what a baby looks like. In the fucking church, they had that, Tina.
No.
It's fucked up.
Not to mention that the Catholic Church for decades has paid off people who have been molested.
Yeah.
They've not protected children. They just move their priests around. Yep. They sweep everything under the rug. And, you know, when you're putting your money in the collection, I'm saying this as, you know, a recovering Catholic, that when you put your money in the collection box, like you're putting money in that fund that could then end up paying off people who've done really horrible things. Yeah. And the church, I feel like, still has not reconciled with that. They still cover things up, and it's challenging. But I grew up in a similar way, but my mom was a cafeteria. I've said this before, she's a cafeteria Catholic, and you pick and choose the things that you like. But my mother was always pro-choice. She would say, for me, I'm pro-life, but I would never take that choice away from someone else.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Have your own belief, but don't dictate that. And this is where we have to start taxing the churches.
Absolutely.
You open your mouth on these issues, you got to pay. You got to pay. You can't have it both ways.
No. So finally, an FBI investigation. Current.
Oh.
On January 19th, 2022, the FBI raided Cuellar's Laredo residence and campaign office and removed several items, including cases and at least one computer, as part of a federal probe relating to Azerbaijan, a country that has been criticized for its caviar diplomacy. I don't know what the fuck that means.
Caviar, money.
So on January 21st, 2022, a federal grand jury issued subpoenas for records relating to Cuellar, his wife, and at least one campaign staffer concerning, quote, anything of value, end quote, that they may have been offered by a certain business leaders or foreign officials, and, quote, any work, favor, or service, end quote, that they may have provided at the behest of a certain foreign government, officials, businesses, or others. Okay.
Wow.
That's
why is he still running? Why is he still running?
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen? What's going to happen? He's going to win. Say he wins.
Yeah.
Say he wins against Cisneros, right?
And then
now all this shit comes out. Then he's out of the damn race, and now there's a Republican. Give me a break.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
So here's the thing. We still don't know the end of this, but as of April 13th, 2022, Cuellar's attorney, Joshua Berman, said, quote, the Justice Department has informed me that Congressman Cuellar is not a target of the investigation. He continues to cooperate fully in the investigation, end quote.
Oh,
there's somebody around him is, right?
Something is coming out.
Yeah. And Nancy Pelosi has said, so people said, like, how are you supporting this guy's under investigation by the FBI? She's like, no, I still support him. He's not part of the investigation. Like, she's still defending him.
How about he takes some time to deal with the mess that he's embroiled himself in, and let someone else take the wheel?
Yeah.
How about that?
It's fucked up. This is not like,
I'm telling you, if he wins and then in 3 months he has to step down, I'm going to lose my mind. Because the writing is on the wall.
Yeah.
The writing is on the wall.
There's another quote that I saw. I forgot the name of the company, but there was this company that they call him something because they give him talking points and they give him so much money, but they just give him talking points of things to say in support of XYZ or whatever it is. And they just think he's great. He's like a puppet to them.
Yeah, I mean, if he's involved in this caviar diplomacy, these are people that are like, have the caviar, have the champagne, have a nice trip, have this and this, and we're going to lobby and we're going to talk and we're going to schmooze. Give me a break. There is something shady afoot.
Yeah.
And it's going to screw constituents over because he cannot see past himself.
Yeah. Here's the thing that's really funny too, is this is one seat that we know about. Like this might have been a seat we never heard about until this Roe v. Wade thing came out, right? Like we never would have been aware. We don't know what's going on in South Laredo, Texas. I don't even
Right. Some small community. Yeah.
How many other Democrats are they coming out and stumping for that they shouldn't be, that we don't know about?
It is so gross.
Yeah.
It is so gross. It is
my
so
fucking
gross.
mind about this race, but I wanted to talk about him. So
Dang,
yeah,
I love this.
we're paying attention to that to see what happens. That'll be a Tuesday, right? And then we can talk about it on that episode. But girl,
I love it.
Yay.
Oh wait, I hear an echo.
Do you?
Oh no, I don't. I thought I heard like an echo.
I got to tell you, we've done this before, and I hate the audio. When I go to edit the audio, I'm like, oh God, I just hate the way it sounds.
There's got to be a way that we don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's a way to make it better, but we just don't know. So forgive us.
Yeah.
Forgive us our
one episode as we forgive those. Oh no.
Yes, forgive us our audio trespasses. And be sure to follow us on all of our socials. Follow us on TikTok. Our TikTok is blowing up.
Talk about TikTok.
Oh my God. So I made a mansion TikTok. I have so many people that just like say really horrible things. So you should go on there and say nice things about us.
Yes, please.
And we would have made one this week because I have a funny one that I want to do. Hold on. That's my child again being loud. No. So in a few minutes. So sorry, folks. This is Zoom life.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're on there and we're getting more followers and
how the mansion video, how many views did you have?
The mansion video doesn't have that many.
What's the one that you said was blowing up?
Oh, so okay, hold on. I've been trying to do like one. So we have one. Oh, one is the Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah.
That's the one. It has like 150,000
Jesus
views. Yeah, and people are stitching with it. It's very exciting.
I don't know what that is, but it sounds awesome. Yeah. Is that when they watch your video and then they react to it on their side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's mainly about like what the quote is. Because I put that quote about
the baby,
the domestic supply of infants. So people like flipped out about that. So go on there, and I wish we could have seen each other today because I wanted to do one with us, but we're trying to figure out the social media thing and seeing to get some traction, to get more listeners. So hopefully if you're a new listener, yay. But please share and continue to share the podcast with people. We really would appreciate any support you want to give us.
Yay. All right. Well, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.